Have you ever had someone, you who record a lot at home, right? Or even in a home studio, in someone else's studio. Has someone ever, like, you sent a track you were liking, and in the end you said, my brother, what did they do to my track?
Yes, definitely.
What do you think happened in this process for the track to have...
Well, usually, there's that thing of cutting the bass and boosting the treble. Then, sometimes it's the person mixing who interfered there, like, I wanted the guitar to be sharper. Or in the final mastering itself, where everything became sharper and the guitar came along. So...
Has there been one bothered you?
Oh, several.
Is there one you can mention?
No, I don't have one.
Man, open the black box.
Where's the black box? Yeah, just threats, just in the air. So there have been times I've been upset. There have been, yes, many times. But today, with time, I'm going to turn 40. As the years go by, you start letting go. You say, I did my best from here on. It's in God's hands. Give a little money to the mix guy. Say, hey, leave an offer with you, just in advance.
I've seen so many things happen in mixing and mastering that I think the most absurd thing I heard was a friend of mine who recorded 2 keyboard solos for the guy to choose the best one. The guy put both solos.
Both solos, one on top of the other, man. I would never have this wonderful idea that this guy had. This guy is a genius.
Imagine when the guy got home and heard, no, it's in the mix. It's gone to the CD to be released.
Or when the guy edits and makes a mess, mixes the two, a piece of each, and it becomes a jumble. Terrible, I say. No, man, there was a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end to this solo. You couldn't do that. Takes the end of one with the end of the other, and oh my.
But was there any key change for you, any key point to where you say, wow, that was something I really noticed that helped me with the issue of tone?
So, the issue of tone, I think it's very much about the sound you listen to, right? For the sound you're going to seek from the reference you have, based on your life, listening to things, right? From your musical references. Man, I listen to a lot of blues, I listen to a lot of pop, so I start creating mental references there, which I go after.
A repertoire of ideas, right?
Sound ones. A repertoire of sounds, and I'm always looking for that sound. It can be any pedal board. And I think that can be a quality. When I'm looking for a sound, I want that Fender sound. And I grab that old little pedal board, and there's an amp with the name Fender on it. I open it up and say, this isn't Fender here or anywhere else. And what do? I don't use it just because it has the name Fender, even though I want it to be a Fender amp. So I look through all the available amps for the one that will achieve that Fender sound I have as a reference. The type of Fender that I want. Sometimes there's a name there that has nothing to do with it. The guy said, hey, you used an amp. These Chinese pedal boards have some names, right? Quite random. Some of them, they put the reference, this one, Marshall, next to it, but others don't even have it. So you keep testing and say, oh, this is similar. How do we combine this with I, R, A, B, or C? So it takes a bit of work to find that sound that's in your mind, much more than just the name. I've received messages like, hey, I wanted some Fender presets because he's for this and that. I said, man, but that pedal board is different. So if you want that Fender, sometimes you get that thin Fender with nothing, very trebly and such. So I look for that sound. I'm seeking in another amp.
Especially because when you talk about Fender, how many models are there?
Exactly. With larger speakers, you got smaller speakers.
The frontman has a different sound from the hot rod.
Very different. From the Twin, that one lies.
But which Fender reference do you like?
I like the Twin and the hot rod too.
Do you have any amp at home?
I have a Vox there, C30.
Do you also like that British sound of the Vox?
I like it too. And on the road, we have the opportunity to explore and test a lot of things, right? What I found most was the jazz chorus. And unfortunately, I don't even remember who I saw this week talking. I think it was Doka. I had a chat with Doka. Doka is a well-known roadie in gospel music. And he said that at the peak of gospel music success, the jazz chorus was what was around, coming from abroad, everyone. The jazz chorus, right?
But do you know why the jazz chorus became famous?
I don't know.
Chris Bono told me this. He's a reference in pedals. He tests all of them for line 6. He said it's because it was the first amplifier to have a built-in chorus. So people, man, there's a chorus in the thing. It wasn't because of the best sound. It was because there was something new there. So it was hyped for a while, you know?
I have a version of why it became famous here in Brazil, which I think is one of the amps that can take the most beating. You see on the road a bunch of amps patched up, adjusted, and the amp is still working. The jazz chorus? The jazz chorus, yes. Also because it's transistor, right? I think it has this ability to withstand a beating in companies being carried here and there. Sometimes you arrive and everything is swapped, all the buttons are replaced. And then on the road, you have to learn to manage. On the road. The studio is a great school for sound tuning. The road is another school. You arrive, there's a jazz chorus there that the speaker has already been replaced, that the system, wow, this sound here has to work miracles. Then you arrive the next day, there's a tiny amp that has no sound, you turn it up a bit, it distorts. So you have to push it to its limit and compensate with the monitor, and the monitor is very mid-ranged. So you become a juggler, there to be able to get sound out of what you have, right? The gospel market doesn't have a structure where you can bring all the amps and such, right? Especially now with the modernity of everyone bringing campers, like, forget it. There wasn't any before, and now there's definitely no chance of that.
There's also that thing, you're hired by a singer. There are several other problems happening, right? Then you get there and start complaining about the amplifier?
Yes, for sure.
It's tough for you.
My desire to buy a Kemper came when I saw the big guys who could bring amps starting to bring the Kemper. I thought, there's something here.
Was there a guy who...
Kiko from Rupanova made an apartment, rented a little apartment in my head and said, man, the day you try it, and he was a guy who had... Kiko is incredibly generous. Wherever we met him or not, he would explain, it's this, it's that. He said, and he was a guy who had the means to bring amps, heads, equipment, trucks, and so on. And he said, man, I switched to Kemper, I have the same sound every time, and I don't want any other life. But I said, man, what about the amp? Man, it's an amp. You have the bass, mid, treble, gain, it's all in your hands. It's an amp. I said, really long. Then I tested it in the studio for the first time and said, wow, interesting. Because when you're recording, you want a different amp, you want more possibilities, you want different drives. I used to record in the studio doing a lot of tracks. So I did journalism tracks with a lot of rock, heavier rock, blues, progressive rock. So you need different sounds. And with just one amp and one setup, you're kind of limited there. With the Kemper, you can play around with amps, play around with pedals, play around with everything. When I tested it, I said, oh, cool.